Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Adi and today we have the first Series 12 team report on the channel from the first major tournament of Series 12. Now of course Series 12 as of recording hasn't officially started. It starts at the beginning of February, but there were two really big tournaments held this weekend in the Series 12 format as people started to get the itch to really play something that isn't Series 11. And so those were, one was hosted by the United States Pokemon Association, the other was hosted by IR Nemesis, a Chilean content creator, and I decided to play in the USPA tournament largely because it was a paid tournament. I think that those generally have I like to play against people who are willing to put their money where their mouth is, and that's kind of my mentality, whereas the Nemesis tournament was free, but it got a lot more people too. It got like 170 people. So I'm going to do some sort of recap of both those tournaments just to look over the teams that did well. Definitely going to have some more team reports upcoming from these two tournaments, as well as the Victory Road tournament that is coming up next weekend. So if you have the itch to play in Series 12, that's a great place to do it, and it should be a great competition. Unfortunately, I will not be able to play in that one, but I digress. So here is the team that I used to get top 16 in the first Series 12 major. I also gave it to Justin Burns the night before the tournament, and he picked it up, was like, yeah, this is crazy, and used it to get top 8 in the first Series 12 major. So that really speaks to its strength and also its consistency. The fact that, only two people brought this team, and we both managed to get to top cut, and, both found it really strong. Palkia is a Pokemon that I think a lot of people look at as maybe something that's a little inconsistent because it does rely on some inaccurate moves. But I think the fact that we both managed to do well with it is a testament to how consistent it really can be. And I guess to jump into the team building process, again, the format was announced 7-8 days ago, I think. So a few of my friends and I, we looked at the restricted duos and we tried to rank all of them. And we quickly realized that Zacian Kyogre is probably the strongest duo in the format. And just in terms of raw power, Zacian and Kyogre are individually the strongest Pokemon in the format, and Kyogre covers Zacian's weaknesses very well. Zacian covers Kyogre's weaknesses very well. They really are a match made in heaven, and so it's no surprise that there are a lot of Zacian Kyogre teams running around. But Palkia Zacian does a lot of the same things. Palkia also covers Zacian's weaknesses in the same way. Zacian covers Palkia's weaknesses in the same way. But Palkia does a lot better into the Zacian Kyogre teams. So you don't have to play that annoying mirror. You have an advantage in that mirror. And I think that was really important. When we were doing our rankings, Palkia Zacian was surprisingly high given our preconceived notions of it. And so that was what I wanted to build around first. The other reason why I wanted to use it is because Zacian Fire, Water, Grass as a core has always been really powerful in all of these single restricted formats that we've had. And as you might remember from 2019, Incineroar and Amoonguss are broken in restricted formats. They are just really, really powerful as a combination. It was a metagame warping combination back in 2019. And I really wanted to be able to play Zacian, Fire, Water, Grass, where I could bring those four as often as possible. I didn't think Kyogre could really take advantage of that, as well as something like Palkia could, and so that's kind of where I opted to go, partially because Kyogre it can Dynamax very well, but it doesn't want to Dynamax, whereas Palkia really wants to Dynamax and has a beneficial Dynamax in terms of getting stat boosts and stat drops, as well as setting rain, of course, for itself, but mostly a lot of times you're clicking Wormwind, you're clicking Max Quake. So that's kind of why I moved towards that team. And so when I was looking for inspiration for the Zacian Palkia team, I found Lycan's team report from a Series 12, effectively Series 12 tournament that was back in 2020, back when there was a GS Cup craze going on. I know Wolf hosted a tournament that was effectively Series 12. I know Joe UX9 hosted one. This is obviously a long time ago. People didn't really get to test as much as they have in the last week, for example, because there wasn't a ladder. But, it's a good place to start. And a lot of the teams that did well then are still doing well now. I think Aaron Traylor used an Eviltalization team. There was a Torn Ogreization team that did well. And so that sort of thing is, they've translated pretty well, at least for the first week. And so anyways, I looked at this team from Lycan, and the first thing I did was I changed some EV spreads because I'm a stickler for that. I also tried some other stuff. I immediately put Play Rough on Zacian, and you're going to see that I don't have Play Rough, but I wanted to try out some other sets that I thought might work in this format, and but it was a really nice starting point just because they had already like written out the matchup spread and how they approach matchups. So that was very convenient just as a way to get acquainted with the team. When I was testing, I very quickly realized that Landorus didn't really do enough. It had to max. I felt like it wasn't really doing enough if it wasn't Dynamaxing, and in the matchups where like I would double intimidate people, I could also just like play Instant Amoongus games, and do that was usually good enough. There were a few times where I felt Landorus was really good, but most of the time I was like losing when I was bringing Landorus, and like the matchups that I had to max it in were mostly Sun, some Calyrex Shadow, and even Sun very often was running Thundurus, and so I really didn't want to have to bring Landorus into that if I didn't need to. And so I decided that the best Pokemon to Dynamax into those two cores was Charizard. And so I ran AV Charizard for the functionality into Calyrex, also so it wouldn't be dead weight into Regieleki. I considered Awakened Berry because then I could do a little more to Thundurus as well, but you don't die to Thundurus attacks anyways unless it's Life Orb, I believe. But I honestly, I don't know. Awakened might be better. I just wanted more functionality into Calyrex, and that's the big reason why I ran AV. That being said, I think if I had to make one change to this team in hindsight, I would probably reconsider the Eleki Charizard to Pokemon Core. That was the first thing that really fit. But I think that with now that I know how the team plays a little better, I would consider trying to play around with that. Again, Eleki was really good into Calyrex, it was good into Yveltal, it was good into some more aggressive Zacian teams, and of course it was really good into Kyogre teams. But I think you can probably beat Kyogre anyways. You do need a fourth Pokemon that you sometimes want to bring, because you don't always want to bring Incineroar into Kyogre teams. But as long as you can bring that fourth Pokemon to Kyogre, you should be able to win pretty consistently. In terms of beating Yveltal, the version that won this USPA tournament was Evil Dawn with Groudon, and so you don't really want to bring Regieleki into that. And then so ideally, I think Mons 5 and 6 on this team would have a fourth Pokemon that you can bring into Kyogre, a fourth Pokemon that you can bring into Evil Dawn, and potentially other Sun teams as well. But mostly Evil Dawn, that was probably the biggest concern as far as Sun goes. And then also some semblance of a Calyrex game plan, even though those teams are very diverse. Then I think you might have a better matchup spread. As it stands, I do like check all those boxes, but maybe not in the best way possible. So that's kind of that's what I'm considering moving forward at least. So going on into the individual Pokemon, starting with Zacian, which is of course just the best Pokemon maybe ever. I mean, like, for real, like, it's kind of crazy. And so, originally, I had Play Rough, like I mentioned, and then realized I really needed Sacred Sword. Play Rough was greedy. Like, obviously, hitting Kyogre is really nice in this format. Hitting Palkia is really nice in this format, and some teams really do need to hit Palkia more than others. But I really struggled with Dialga, Solgaleo, Ferrothorn, and those types of Steel Spikers. I wanted a way to hit through the defense boost that they could generate pretty quickly. And so that was kind of the priority. And yeah, I was just like losing. I played like a Dialga and I was like, wow, I just lose to this. I do not have great ways to hit it. And so I needed to put Sacred Sword on the team after that. Sub is just a crazy move. It is so good. Like it really does work really well with Incineroar and Amoongus because you can generate those free turns really easily. And it punishes passive play because your opponent can't double protect in front of your Dynamax, can't double protect to like stall out the fake out turn that you have live, things like that. And it also like gives you really safe plays into your opponent's Dynamax if Zacian outspeeds them, because it means that you're just like baiting Dynamax turns, or if they don't target it, you just have a sub up and you're in a great spot. So Zacian is crazy. That's kind of all I have to say. Sub is crazy on it. I think you need it. You can run 3 attacks. I think you want sub. And you can either run Player or for Sacred Sword, but on this team, I think you run Sacred Sword. In terms of the EV spread, it's pretty standard. The speed was probably a mistake. So I looked at Thundurus, which is 179. I looked at 180, which is like Adamant Zamazenta or Impish Zamazenta, Eternatus, and a lot of things speed creeping Thundurus. And I speed crept that a little bit, but I still got outsped a lot. And probably the reason why is because I don't outspeed Regieleki at +1 speed. And that's probably pretty important. And that you just need 1 more point of speed to hit. So I probably should at least put 1 more point in speed. The rental code does not have that. You will speed tie Regieleki if you get them to -1, and you will not outspeed them at +1. I believe that's what it is right now. I also would consider like outspeeding Cinderace if you want to hit another number, because that is like a semi-relevant Pokemon that you can outspeed. But I was outsped, but basically every Zacian I faced, it wasn't great, but the bulk is really, really good. Like, I lived a lot of attacks with under 10 hit points left. The bulk on Zacian is really valuable, and that's kind of just how Zacian works. Is there's no one established EV spread. You pick a number for speed, you pick a number for bulk, you pick a number for attack. All three of them are really valuable. You just kind of pick what you want. And I might have made a mistake here with the speed stat. I think I probably would have gone 1 point faster, although it never actually came up for me. In terms of Palkia, I think that the moveset is pretty standard. The one flex spot is Trick Room or Earth Power. I know Bingji released a Palkia team earlier this week that had Trick Room on it, but I thought Earth Power was incredible. I thought Earth Power was the reason to run the Pokemon. I'll go that far, because you are Dynamaxing it so often, and there are so many powerful special attacks. In fact, you are Dynamaxing it every game. I'll go that far. Like, every game you're not Dynamaxing Charizard, which is not very often, you're Dynamaxing Palkia, outside of, like, the occasional, like, Incineroar max against Calyrex. You really want to boost your special defense stat. You want to boost it against Kyogres, you want to boost it against Calyrex, you want to boost it against all these like random restricteds like Dialga, like opposing Palkia potentially. And you also want to have a safe way to hit Incineroar, hit Zacian, and a profitable way to hit those Pokemon while you're Dynamaxed. It was really good. When I talked to Justin, he also said, like, yeah, you need to run these 4 moves. At least on this team, if you have more Trick Room options, then obviously you probably consider Trick Room a lot stronger. And normally I think you would run like Lustrous Orb if you were running Trick Room, but because you're running Earth Power and you want those Earth Powers to do damage, you have to run Life Orb, which does kind of suck because you do take damage and you are increasing your bulk and then taking your damage. Not ideal, but you do really need a Life Orb boosted Earth Power. Like, there were definitely times where I just barely picked up KOs. I think I faced like an Assault Vest Kyogre, and I just barely two-shot it with Max Quake, which was kind of funny, but like worked out really well. Justin was saying that he would have gone Timid and reduced the special attack investment because he really regretted like not outspeeding specific things. But and I can see that there's just a trade-off there. As it stands, I put enough speed to outspeed Calyrex at +1 speed. Also Zacian at +1 speed because Calyrex is 1 point faster than Zacian. Again, I could see going Timid, but I really liked the damage. Damage is really nice. And that's just kind of the trade-off that you have to hit. It's also just a really crowded speed tier because a lot of things want to outspeed Calyrex and Zacian at +1 speed. So you could speed tie a lot of things right now. Maybe you add speed creep and reduce bulk. I don't know. Again, it's still early format. There's a lot of development to go. But this is kind of what I decided to run, and I was pretty happy with the spread. Although, again, I think Justin said that if he had built the team and not just used my rental code, he would have used Timid and might have won his top 8 match because of it. Because I think apparently the Evoltal he faced in top 8 was 1 point faster than the Palkia. And then Amoonguss, moving on, is very standard. The EV spread lives 2 Timid Sea Incense Water Spouts from Kyogre. Palkia outspeeds the Modest variants, so I didn't think that I needed to live 2 Modest Water Spouts. And I thought that physical attackers were more common, namely Zacian, some Thundurus. I had Koba Berry, of course, so I could take the max airstreams, but like you do want to live like random attacks from Thundurus, random attacks from like physical Regieleki, for example, Cinderace, Solgaleo, like I don't know, there's so many random physical attackers, whereas the special attackers you kind of know what you're going to get, and stuff like Kyogre can't really hit you, and stuff like Calyrex are gonna OHKO you regardless. So I was pretty happy with the EV spread there, but I think that again Amoonguss you can kind of just dump points wherever you want. I think that the Amoonguss really wants Pollen Puff in this metagame. Pollen Puff was really, really good, especially with Incineroar, where you're generating free turns, healing it back up potentially. With Zacian, where you can sub, and then you can Pollen Puff to gain the HP back later on. With Palkia, where you're generating special defense boosts for both Pokemon, and you can just kind of create this unbreakable game state where you have a +2 special defense Amoonguss and a +2 special defense Palkia, and you're just healing it back up or sporing every turn. Pollen Puff was really good. It also was another reason to like not run Landorus, because then you run Telepathy on Palkia to take Earthquakes next to it, and Pollen Puff doesn't work if you have Telepathy. And also the IV spread, not the EV spread, but the IVs were there to underspeed Calyrex Ice, so I'd always move before it in Trick Room, while still being as fast as possible to potentially win like an Amoonguss Mirror, or to get a Pollen Puff off before they can Sludge Bomb if that comes up. It might come up. You could theoretically just go max speed and have a lot of the same things. or sorry, min speed, excuse me. So those 4 Pokemon were the backbone of the team. I think that if you can bring those 4 Pokemon, you will win the game. It's really hard to find a set where Justin or I didn't win this set if we felt like we could bring those 4 Pokemon. Fire, Water, Ground, Zacian, again, it's just an incredible, incredible defensive core. I mean, I just cannot speak highly enough about it. It's the reason to run this team. It feels so good. It feels like 2019. It just like, it's so tough to break. It exerts so much offensive pressure. I mean, again, Instant Amoonguss was the defining feature of 2019 formats. You just got to play these really defensive, grindy games where you were winning damage trades against the restricted Pokemon, while Incineroar and Amoonguss kind of lived forever. And now Amoonguss has Pollen Puff, Incineroar has Parting Shot. You just get to do it even better than you did back then. And I think this is the shell that really lets you abuse that about as well as possible. And so I think maybe my experience from 2019 really helped me in this early format as other people are getting more acquainted with it. Justin is, one of the best 2019 players in the world, so it's no surprise that he also did really well with the team. If you miss that sort of feeling, try the team out. That's all I got to say. And the last 2 Pokemon, of course, I would consider changing, but I think that they did their job pretty well. So Alaki is a standard Sash set. The Lycans team had Screech on it, and I was like, nah, I want Volt Switch. Volt Switch is really good. You need to take 1 Water Spout versus like Torrent Ogre leads, so you can just like click Electrorub into it, and that was just really safe. You get to take an Astro Barrage against like Whim's Tailwind stuff, so you get to like protect and then Electrorub and then protect, and all of a sudden now you're faster if you have a turn to KO the Whimsicott. So that was kind of nice. Magnet is usually better if you Dynamax. I didn't max it ever, basically, and it was just there for speed control and electric coverage, and that's kind of why Sash was really vital. The Charizard was the Assault Vest set. I really thought back to my like Players Cup 3 team where I run Assault Vest Charizard because that team used it really extensively in the Calyrex Shadow matchup. And I think that Assault Vest is probably the right item in hindsight. It didn't do enough on its own, but I think that if I am using it in that slot, I think Assault Vest really felt right, just because I needed a little bit more help into Calyrex Shadow, and that was the item that gave it to me. The EVs outspeed Calyrex at +1, and then also have an extra point because I didn't want to speed time my own Palkia, and it hit a jump number and special attack. The rest is an HP dump, I believe. There aren't any like specific calcs in mind, but that being said, whenever I played against Calyrex, I always just barely lived its attacks, so I felt like it worked, It really did. Like, I straight up played a Calyrex on ladder and then the Calyrex in top 16, and both times I played it, I like lived its attack with under 10 HP. After I like maxed, did my thing, took some chip, they maxed, they hit the Charizard, and they were really surprised that I lived. So it worked out exactly as intended. I did change to Blast Burn at the last minute. So Justin ran Weather Ball instead of Blast Burn. Again, I put Weather Ball on the team because I was like, I don't know what to put as a 4th move. I'm Assault Vest. I had Ancient Power in my Players Cup 3 team, but I didn't really want to run Ancient Power this time. And Weather Ball maybe had some cool synergies with Palkia. If you max the Palkia and you click Max Geyser, then you can do Charizard can Hurricane outside of Max, and also Weather Ball as a Water type move outside of Max. But that never ever came up in testing. And so I posted the team in like a Discord chat that I'm in with like, hey, this is what I'm planning on running. What do you guys think? This is how Justin, this is where Justin got it. And they were like, why are you running Weather Ball? And I was like, I don't know. I couldn't think of a better 4th move. And someone was just like, use Blast Burn. And so that's what I did. Like the morning of the tournament, I went and changed it. But Justin did use Weather Ball because I did not change the rental code that I gave him. Of course, the rental code that you see on screen right now does have Blast Burn. So you will be using that variant, and I think that is better just for additional damage. And so moving on to like the game plans that the team had, I think the ideal game plan that you're going to do is, of course, with Incineroar Amoonguss along with your 2 restricteds. Again, cannot speak highly enough. Just like, it's crazy. It's so good. Trick Room, you play using against Trick Room Ogre teams or other Trick Room teams, I guess. But like, you get to Spore them. They don't have great counterplay to Spore. You get a Parting Shot, and because they are reliant on Kyogre to beat Incineroar, you actually underspeed the Kyogres. That's part of why I wasn't running speed investment. I wanted to underspeed Kyogre in Trick Room, and Kyogre hits a minimum of 85 speed in Trick Room. If they run Iron Ball, credit to them, whatever. They don't have damage then. Against Sun teams, I would sometimes... I also brought those 4 against the Zygarde team that I faced and that is another place where like they never got to do damage because I just got to stall them out with Incineroar and Amoonguss and Pollen Puff and Max Wormwind and all those crazy damage mitigation options that this team has. Against Sun, I sometimes would drop Palkia. Sometimes I would drop Amoonguss, really dependent on what the combination of Pokemon they had were. And of course, those were all for Charizard, where Charizard felt really good into Sun, both in terms of getting residual damage off and doing big damage. Against some rain teams, you drop the Incineroar for Regieleki. You don't always do that, especially against like Trick Room teams, but that's more true of aggressive teams that really want to speed control. You just get to fade turns with Protect, and Electroweb gets to give you speed control on turn 4 of the game usually. That's of course dependent on the team composition. Use your own best judgment when you're using the team. And then Calyrex Shadow was never really standardized, but in top 16, I did choose to, I didn't really have a set game plan, even after prepping the matchup. I wanted all 6 Pokemon, and it really depended on what my opponent brought. But game 1, I did not bring Charizard, and game 2, I did. And both of those game plans honestly felt fine. I just needed to, top 16, I missed a Hydro Pump that would have won me the game in the first game, and then the second game, I just played poorly. Like, I was in a good position with Charizard, and then I probably mistargeted in the early game and was still in an okay spot, and then either called the turn wrong or threw. I still haven't figured out which in like the decisive turn of the game. But the fact that like I was in a position to win the game despite making a misplay earlier in the game says a lot about how resilient the team can be. So I don't feel too bad about the Calyrex Shadow matchup, although the Calyrex Shadow matchup was maybe one of the weaker spots of the team. You can also just max Instant in the Calyrex Shadow matchup. That was my game plan if I got to a game 3. It was just always max Instant. So, that's kind of the game plans overall. Again, Evil Dawn was something that Justin lost to twice, once in Swiss and once in Top Cut. And so maybe that needs help. I probably should have respected it a little more. That was a place where Landorus might have been nicer, since that's not a variant that runs Thunderous. But that's something for you to try out, or I will also continue working on this team to keep developing the archetype. And yeah, so normally I would do a tournament recap now, and I would talk about some notable games. I did just tell you about my top 16 match, but I actually recorded all of my games. So I will upload all of them in one video, one long video. It'll be about 2 hours long, that has some commentary about my matches as I play them. And I didn't do that last time, but I'm saying I will do it this time. We'll see if I actually do it. But if you want to watch that, make sure to subscribe and make sure to like this video. And more team reports are going to show up. I have a couple other team reports from this weekend that are already planned. And of course, shoutouts. I got to give a shout out to Justin for doing so well with the team and really making, justifying me making the report, since my top 16 certainly could have been better. And shout out to Icehouse for the help in prep. Really, really useful. Shout out to Lycan for building the original version of the team that I started building upon. And yeah, that's all I got. So until next time, I will see you all later.